You bought something called a rotating proxy, and you cannot tell if you got one clean endpoint or a giant list of random IPs. Those are two different products, and people sell them under the same word on purpose. Real phones, real SIM cards from Singtel, M1 and StarHub. So I will give you the honest split between a rotating mobile proxy and the proxy pool and tell you which one you actually want. Here is the verdict first, because you came to decide. If your work touches accounts, logins, or anything that has to look like one trusted person, you want a rotating mobile proxy. If your work is huge volume cheap scraping where you do not care who you look like, a proxy pool wins. Most people doing account work buy the pool by accident and pay for it. Let me define both cleanly, because the names hide the difference. A rotating mobile proxy is one gateway, one host, one port that never changes. You point your tool at that single endpoint and forget it. Behind it sits a real phone on a carrier, and the carrier IP behind that gateway changes on a schedule or when you ask it to. You keep one address. The IP out the back rotates. You babysit nothing. Let me make that concrete. Your scraper or your browser connects to one address, say a host and a port I give you. That connection never moves. Inside my farm, that port is wired to a specific phone. When that phone asks its carrier for a new IP, the carrier hands it a fresh one, and the old one drops back into the carrier pool. Your tool never notices. It is still talking to the same host and port. The change happens behind the curtain, on real hardware, and you did not have to touch a single line of code to make it happen. A proxy pool is the opposite shape. It is a list, hundreds or thousands of separate IPs, usually residential, that you cycle through yourself. Your code picks one, uses it, drops it, picks the next. You hold the whole bag, and managing the bag is your job. That difference sounds small on a sales page, but it decides who carries the risk of a bad IP and how much of your week goes to maintenance instead of the actual work. One of these you set once, the other you tend like a garden. And here is what tending that garden actually looks like. You fetch a list from an API, you test each IP to see if it is alive. You tag which ones are slow, which ones are already blocked on your target, which ones are in the wrong country. You rotate them on a schedule you wrote yourself. You retry the failures, you refresh the list when it goes stale. None of that is the work you set out to do. All of it is overhead the gateway simply does not have. Now trust, which is the thing that decides whether you get blocked. A rotating mobile proxy gives you one carrier IP at a time, from a real ISP, shared behind carrier-grade net with thousands of actual phone customers. An anti-bot system looks at it and sees an ordinary mobile subscriber because that is genuinely what it is. Why does that matter so much? Because a carrier cannot afford to let a platform ban its IPs. Thousands of paying phone customers sit behind each one. If a site blocked that IP, it would block real people trying to use the site from their phones. So platforms tread carefully with mobile carrier ranges. And that caution is exactly the trust you are renting when you buy mobile. You are hiding inside a crowd of real users, and the crowd is what keeps you safe. A proxy pool gives you a bag of mixed quality IPs. Some are clean, some were hammered by another customer an hour before you got them. You do not know the history of any single IP in that list, and you inherit whatever the last user did with it. The average quality of a pool is fine. The specific IP you happen to pull might be burned. And here is the part that bites people. A lot of those residential pools are built from apps and browser extensions that quietly borrow ordinary people's bandwidth. So the IP you get was never really yours, was shared with strangers, and might already be flagged before you send a single request. You are renting reputation you cannot inspect. Session control is the next split, and it is bigger than people expect. With a rotating mobile proxy, you get the sticky window. You hold one carrier IP for a whole login, a whole checkout, a whole session, then rotate clean when you are done. One identity, one IP, start to finish. Think about why that shape matters. A login is not one request. It is a handshake, a token, a few redirects, maybe a verification step, then the pages you actually wanted. If your IP changes halfway through that, the site sees a session that started in one place and finished in another. A sticky window keeps the whole sequence on one address, so it reads like one person sitting still, which is what a real login looks like. With a pool, holding a session means you have to pin an IP yourself and hope it stays alive. It is a home connection you do not control, so it can drop mid-task, and now your logged in session jumps to a new IP in the middle of the flow. That is exactly the pattern that gets an account flagged. Think about how the anti-bot side reads each one. A mobile gateway looks like one phone that occasionally gets a new carrier address. Totally normal. That is what every real phone on the planet does as it moves between cell towers all day. A pool used carelessly looks like one account touching 40 different IPs across 4 countries in an afternoon. No real human does that. The pool did not get you caught. The way a pool forces you to behave got you caught. You can fix it, but fixing it means rebuilding by hand what the mobile gateway gives you for free. You pin one IP per identity, you lock the list to one country, you track which IPs are alive, and you rotate on your own clock. It is doable. It is also a second job, and most people do not realize they signed up for it until the ban starts. So when does the pool actually win? When you want massive parallel volume and you do not care about identity, scraping public pages, price monitoring across thousands of URLs, gathering open data when the target barely checks who you are. Throw 1,000 IPs at it, go wide, go cheap. A single mobile gateway would be a slow bottleneck for that job, and overkill on trust you do not need. Let me give you a real scenario for the pool. Say you are pulling 1 million product listings of a big retail site that does not block hard. You want to finish fast, so you spread that million requests across 1,000 IPs all at once. Nobody is logging in. Nobody is holding a session. You do not care if one IP in the 1,000 is a bit dirty, because no single request matters. That is the pool playing to its strengths, and the mobile gateway would just slow you down and cost more for trust the job never asked for. And when does the one rotating mobile endpoint win? Account work. Anything where a single block costs real money. You want the highest trust IP, you want clean sticky sessions, you want simplicity. One host and port in your config, no list to maintain, no dead IPs to prune, no babysitting. The simplicity is not a small thing. It is hours of your week. Here is the matching scenario for the gateway. Say you run a handful of social or ad accounts that each took months to warm up, and one ban wipes out real money. You do not need 1,000 IPs. You need a few rock-solid ones, each tied to one identity, each holding a clean sticky session through every login. One phone, one carrier IP at a time, rotated only when you choose. That is the gateway playing to its strengths, and the pool would just be a pile of unknown risk wrapped around something you cannot afford to lose. There is a real cost difference, and I will not pretend otherwise. A proxy pool is cheaper per gigabyte because residential bandwidth at volume is cheap. A rotating mobile proxy costs more, because there is a physical SIM, a physical phone, and a monthly carrier bill behind every single IP you use. Real hardware costs real money. But per gigabyte is the wrong way to measure account work. You are not buying bandwidth there, you are buying an IP that does not get your account banned. A cheap pool IP that burns a valuable account on day one is the expensive choice. A mobile IP that keeps that account alive for a year is the cheap one. Match the price model to the job. The pool is priced like a commodity because it is one. The gateway is priced like a tool you trust with something that matters because that is what it is. Geography is the other place the two pull apart, and it matters more than people think. If you need to look like you are genuinely in a country, say you are testing how a site behaves for a local user, or running an account that should live in one place, a real carrier IP from that country passes in a way a pool entry that merely claims to be there does not. A single mobile gateway in the right place is consistent. A pool that says it is regional is only as honest as the worst IP in the list. One more trap, and it applies to both. If you use SOCKS 5, use SOCKS 5H, so DNS resolves through the tunnel instead of leaking from your own machine. A DNS leak quietly undoes the whole point of the proxy. You can have the cleanest carrier IP in the world and still give yourself away because your machine asked your own ISP to resolve the name. Route the DNS through the tunnel, and it does not care whether you bought a pool or a gateway. So the real question is never which is better in the abstract. It is, what is the job? Identity and trust, go rotating mobile. Raw cheap volume where nobody is checking, go pool. Buy for the work in front of you, not for the word on the sales page. If your job is the account and trust kind, the mobile proxies behind this channel are real Singapore SIMs from my own farm, Singtel, M1 and StarHub. You get real SG mobile IPs, sticky sessions when you need to hold one, and DNS that routes through the tunnel so nothing leaks. One clean gateway, no list to babysit. There is a free trial at singaporemobileproxy.com/client/trial, and the code YT30 in the description gets you started. Run your own target through it and watch how one clean endpoint behaves against a bag of unknown IPs. If the honest version helped, subscribe. 2 new videos every weekday. See you in the next one.